Nguyen Dan Pua, the editor of Tianpong, a Hanoi daily. They don't love the pilot who came to kill their family. They love the man he is now. McCain's role as a front-runner in the normalization process has convinced Vietnam's ruling class that the White House, that if he won the White House, he would increase bilateral trade with the United States, which was about $11 billion last year.
And so isn't that what it's really all about, is making money?
It's really all about money, and that's the truth about money.
It's capitalism, right?
It's really all about the money.
Everybody buy the stuff you don't really need and move that money around.
You know, Francis Boyle, our second guest today, said, when I called him up yesterday, he said, I'm not a personal finance expert. I don't know anything about money. I've got 2 kids in college. I told him, dude, if it's about politics, it's about money. Just speak to what you know, and we'll take it from there. It's all about money. Let me finish this story about McCain, because I just think it's so poignant, because Vietnam was such a waste, just like the Middle East is going to be such a waste. Many in Vietnam right now are pushing for McCain. They talk about in this article how they rushed out to meet McCain, and they beat him up. They actually bayoneted him in his groin. They held a knife to his throat. They broke his arm, and the person that came to his aid was a nurse, and the nurse saved him. McCain says he credits his life being saved by a woman who may have been a nurse yelling at the crowd and taming their anger. She offered him herbal tea and put bamboo splits on his broken bones. Today, that nurse, Nguyen Thanh Thi, says her first feeling was to look at McCain as a patient first and not as an enemy or as a POW. That woman, now a 81-year-old grandmother of 5, is also hoping for McCain's victory because the prospect of greater trade, she said in an interview. Granted, with the government's permission, she will do everything she can to support him. We remember that, quote, he has enjoyed government's mercy and that God's mercy as well, and that he will repay his country and ours in kind, she said. McCain has a less charitable view of his years in Hanoi, of course. In his memoir, he talks about torture. Eventually, the beatings broke his will, and in 1968, he signed a false confession. But he says, and he made this comment yesterday, he bears no grudge against Vietnamese people, and as we all know, he led the way along with John Kerry, a Massachusetts Democrat, to restoring relations with Vietnam 13 years ago, providing cover for President Bill Clinton against conservatives. And McCain has returned to Southeast Asia about a dozen times. McCain's victory would lead to bilateral ties with Vietnam and possibly a free trade accord, said the former warden of the Hanoi Hilton. He says that I think he says here in the article that he literally takes an envelope and rips it up, and he writes McCain on it to vote in what he calls a make-believe ballot box. That's how hard he is putting the vision in his mind as McCain as a president. When Communist Party officials asked this former commander of the Hanoi Hilton why he was supporting McCain, the gentleman said, quote, Lenin once said that he would spend a huge amount of money to hire a good capitalist to help him run the country. The commander of the Hanoi Hilton says that he considers himself a communist in name only. The byproducts of capitalism and consumerism can be seen in Hanoi everywhere. Its streets, once the domain of bicycles and motor scooters, are now choked with newly purchased sports utility vehicles as a result of Vietnam's new prosperity. Again, this is so ironic that America is now, waging this war against terrorism, its so-called war against terrorism in the Middle East. Time will tell whether it turns out to be a Vietnam. Time will tell if the same irony plays out. Time will tell if it's our fate simply to repeat the mistakes of the past. We're going to get our first guest on the phone, Michael Clare, and take a short musical interlude. No, he's right here right now.
I'm on.
All right. Mr. Clare, are you there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So you heard my whole introduction. Wonderful. Let me introduce you to our guest. Michael Clare is the Five College Professor of Peace and World Security Studies, whose department is located in Hampshire College, but who also teaches at Amherst College, Smith College, Mount Holyoke College, and the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. He is a defense correspondent at The Nation magazine and the author of Resource Wars and Blood and Oil, The Dangers and Consequences of America's Growing Dependence on Oil. Michael Clare also serves on the boards of Human Rights Watch and the Arms Control Association. He is a regular contributor to many publications, including The Nation and Mother Jones, and he's the frequent columnist on Foreign Policy in Focus, a project of the Institute for Foreign Policies in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show, Mr. Clare.
My pleasure.
Mr. Clare, you first came to my attention back in 2005 when I read your article, Wag the Dog, Crisis Scenarios for Deflecting Attention from the President's Woes. In that article, you alleged that the major motivating factor for George Bush in attacking Iran would be his desire to distract attention from our collapsing economy here at home and to increase his popularity as president. Why would President Bush believe that now if it didn't work for him back in 2003 when he attacked Iraq?
Run that by me again.
Why would the president think that making aggressive moves towards Iran now would be a boost to his popularity and that of his party now with the scenario in Iran?
I think the motives now would be different. I think they're a combination of moves.